everyone, and welcome to the LatinX Business Podcast. I'm your host, Randy Gomez, and if you're looking to demystify the world of business through the raw, authentic stories of Latinx entrepreneurs, you've come to the right place. As someone with an MBA and an IRS enrolled agent license, I spent years helping freelancers, partnerships, and S corporations navigate the often tricky waters of the U.S. tax law. Now, I'm bringing that expertise and passion to this community right here. So thank you for tuning in, and you know what? It's time to talk business. Thank you so much for coming on board to the Latinx Business Podcast. I'm actually really happy to have you here today.
I know, I was excited to hear. I was like, what? You got a podcast?
I know, right? It's something I'm starting new, but hey, I think it's a really good platform for a lot of people, anywhere really, but especially people in our community who can just, download a podcast that's free on an app that they prefer, and then they can listen to us, But yeah, I think the most important part about my podcast is building that Latinx community of entrepreneurs, which you are one. So that's why, I've been following you for several years now on social media, and we've met before. So I'm really, really happy that you agreed to come on.
Of course. How can I say no?
Awesome. Okay, well, let's get right into it. First question is, what's your preferred pronoun? And do you have a reason?
Just she, her.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's good. So what about within the Latinx community? How do you identify?
As Latina, both my parents are from Mexico. So one's from Zacatecas and my dad's from Guadalajara. And it's kind of hard, that like conversation of like Hispanic or Latina, and then the Latinx community. And I think now the Latinx word, it's kind of like not conforming to like the racial, social binary thing, and mixing of cultures, you can say, or at least that's how I understand it. And I'm like, I think now, I think we're all being part of this Latinx community, because we're mixing all these different cultures, traditions from like the American and the Mexican, and our Spanglish ways of talking now. People understand that.
I know, you see it so much more now on TV. I remember, I think it was in the 90s when like the first crossover song was like a hit, in the US. And I was like, that is interesting, because, of course, me and you, like, we grew up with Spanish and English, in the home. And I just feel like so many of us have that shared experience. And I totally get you when you're like, it's tough to talk about how to identify within the community, because, so many people go to Mexico and they feel like it's home, but sometimes you feel like you don't belong, or you get called a pocha or pocho,
Exactly.
Because your Spanish is like not the best, of course, because now you're mixing different languages. But I wouldn't have it any other way. I think that knowing two languages has been very helpful in my career, especially now that like I do assist a lot of Latinos and Latinas, And that's why I think I also went with Latinx, because it really depends how comfortable the person is and what they feel like. And by no means do I ever want to tell someone this is what you are, like, because I 100% feel like each person needs to identify who they are and how they're going to identify, like no one else should be imposing that on them. But yes, okay, thank you for that background. Let's talk a little bit about your business journey. How did you get started with the Alley Garden? And then maybe I guess we should start with you, giving the audience who doesn't know what you do in the business a little bit in that background.
Okay, well, it definitely was a interesting path. I mean, since I've known you, I think when I met you was at Las Fotos Project, right? So that was about like 7 years ago, maybe.
Yes. It's been a while.
It's been a while. But so as I created the Alley Garden a little over 3 years ago now. I focus on like creating primarily like planters, custom made planters. I build them and hand paint them and do succulent floral arrangements. And throughout the years, I've been implementing more like floral arrangements with like bouquets, centerpieces for weddings, even succulent hair pieces, something a little different from the usual like flower crowns, something to stand out, But I really wanted to incorporate artwork and painting. That was something that I really wanted to do for a long time, but didn't know how to implement it. And I think the idea came when
Mm,
my dad showed me this light bulb. That's like the original piece that started everything for me. It's a little plantita and a light bulb, and it's a physical light bulb like the ones that we have at home. You know, se te funden, and
right.
people usually throw it away. So my dad said, like, you know, we used to recycle these and just put like a little plant in there, and it was something different, unique, and
Oh my
nostalgic
God.
for him. Yeah.
Yeah, that is so cool. I like that, you know, because I've seen that in your Instagram pages and I've seen how, you know, people flock to that idea. And I'm like, I love it that it came from your dad, you know?
Yeah, so it's literally like a light bulb moment, you know?
Mhm. Yeah, a light bulb moment. And not only that, I feel like sometimes, you know, out of necessity comes like really good innovation. Because that's what I'm seeing, you know. And for you, it's now forever going to be a moment, right? But
Mhm.
I love that. Yeah. Okay. So then once you got that idea, then what happened?
I think it was like, you know, how I believe in patterns and like things coming first circle, like whole circles all the time.
Hmm.
Initially, when I started getting involved with nonprofits, I started at a garden. It was Proyecto Jardín here in Boyle Heights. I don't know if you remember that space.
No, no, not really. But okay, go ahead.
Yeah, and so my dad is the one that took me there. This was like a little right after high school, and you know, you're trying to figure out what to do. You're gonna enter college, and
Right.
I know from the beginning I wanted to have a business, but I didn't really know what. And at that time, I didn't really focus too much in it. So I got involved with this community garden. I loved it. We were growing, you know, tomatoes and calabazas, a little bit of everything, and there was
Mm-hmm.
like a lot of transitional phases where I went to work with different nonprofits, different backgrounds, like with the photography, with video, with
Right.
stage managing, community organizing. And I think little by little that pushed me towards going back into art. Like, what was my point with art? How did I want to create something with art that I was going to be able to sustain myself and create eventually a business with it? But at that time, the Alley Garden was not even existent. I was trying to create
Mm-hmm.
my like a clothing apparel business, my clothing brand, calling it the Urban District 14 because we are from District 14, you know, this area.
Right. Yeah. Boy, I.
But you know, I'm not a fashionable person. I'm not really into trends. So it didn't make sense for me at the time. And then my dad started working with herbs and planting here at the house again. And succulents started becoming something that was like, oh wow, you know, they're easy to care for. Everyone's gonna have one. And
Right.
I started selling succulents, but my first product was the light bulb, and that's the one I started taking to the farmer's market with my dad since he was already vending at events. I had a job.
Mm.
So I would only do it weekends. And my first logo was an actual little light bulb with LA in the middle
Mm-hmm.
because that was my product. And I think little by little, I started pushing towards planters because I didn't want to outsource planters or buy other people's boxes. I wanted to build my own, something that's unique to me and like only I have it. You know, I wanted to be exclusive.
Right. Yeah, that's the businesswoman in you right there. Yeah, I love
Yeah,
that.
all thanks to my dad. He's been a businessman. I think he's the one that influenced me and my brother.
Hmm.
You know, to be go getters, create your own identity, your own thing, be unique and stand out. You know.
Right. Right. That's awesome.
So he's the one that taught me. He's like, okay, you're gonna learn how to make your cajitas. If that's what you want to do, this is what you
Uh-huh.
need. This is how you're gonna do it. And he helped me a few times. And then once I got the hang of it, it was like, okay, that's all you. You know, that's your business. You handle it.
But since you started the Alley Garden 3 years ago, how has your business journey been? Like you've been at this by yourself now. Have you ever felt lonely? You know,
Mm-hmm.
how, how, how has that been for you entering the business world?
I think, well, mostly because I work by myself, it does feel lonely, sometimes stressful. You know, you're like, oh, I wish I had another pair of hands to help me. For the most part, I think when I started, other people were starting their own businesses as well, their own craft. So it helped out that I wasn't alone in that sense of like that community of these upcoming entrepreneurs, these young people creating their ideas from scratch as well. So it's, you know, now I have this like solid group of friends who have their own businesses that we started around the same time. So we understand the
Mm,
struggle and we can like bounce ideas off each other. Like, hey, what do you think about this? Like, oh, do you want to collaborate on this? Maybe it'll help each other out, you know? So
and
it's been good in that sense. Like I don't feel alone in that sense of being like alone in a own businesswoman. You know, there's other people as well.
Right. Okay. So this community of young entrepreneurs, how did you tap into it?
I think you know how when you start getting involved in a circle, then you start meeting other people and like word of mouth, like, oh, hey, you should talk to this person or that person. And being at the farmers market in downtown, like kind of geared me to other events that were pop-ups. You know, that term started popping up out of
Mm,
nowhere.
right.
And then I was pushed towards like events at Plaza Alvera, then Molcajete Dominguero, and I was
Mm,
involved with like those events
yes.
pretty constantly. You know, every weekend I started going. That's when I started meeting all these other vendors who were like, oh, like that's cool. You do plants. No one else is doing plants, so you're more than welcome to join this pop up, this event. So I was like, okay, cool. You know.
Yeah, and that's good because you're probably one of the first ones doing plants because as we all know, we are in the midst of a pandemic and plants have just become all the rage, right?
Oh yeah.
So you were definitely a pioneer, in that arena. And now, okay, but let's talk a little bit about your business and the pandemic. How has it flourished? What obstacles have you faced during the pandemic?
Well, I think with the pandemic, for the same reason, everybody started going towards plants. They've become plant mommies, plant daddies.
Right. I'm
People,
one.
I'm
You
like, people that were not really into plants or never really saw them as a necessity, you know, something that they really cared for. Like they saw them in pictures, maybe they look nice on the corner of your bookshelf, but now it's like, oh, this is my child. I'm trying to take care of you. If you grow, I grow, you know.
right.
It shows you patience. It shows you like taking care of something else other than your own, you know, so you're not selfish all the time. It's definitely patience. I think that's one of the biggest things now with the pandemic. You know, you're home, you're locked up, you work from home, you sleep, you exercise, and you have nothing else to do. So you're like, okay, you know, what now? So I think one of the next things that people were into were gardening, creating their own little herb gardens,
Right.
getting indoor plants for the room because it gives it better energy, better ambiance. When you have people over, they always look at your plants. They're going to be like, oh, this is cute, you know?
Mm,
And it's like a good conversation starter as well. Like, oh, I got this, you know, there's sometimes a story behind it. Like I got it from my neighbor. It was outgrowing their backyard and they gave me a piece and now it's like blooming here at my house.
yeah, so it's funny that you say that because I was about to say it's definitely a conversation starter if you have anyone over or your family over. And then in terms of that same plant blooming in your space and it came from another space, that in itself is a success that, I think so many people are craving like success right now and
Mm-hmm.
little stories of happiness because with everything that's been going down this year, it's been super hectic and tumultuous for a lot of people. So yeah, I mean, I think plants are wonderful and I do have a lot. Since in my house, I have about like in my room and I have about like six of them in here alone. But I think you're right. I think people are craving, that interaction. And part of that is feeling wanted and being able to take care of somebody else. So I definitely feel that, the plants are doing this for other people.
Yeah, so it's definitely an accomplishment when you see a new leaf growing.
Oh yeah, those are awesome when they pop up. I love them. Talk to us a little bit about the pandemic and what shifts have you seen in your business?
I think with the pandemic, you know, surprisingly, it's been growing because now that we've been stuck at home, we're all online shopping. We're all looking to see what grabs our attention, fills us up with a little bit more light and love in our life with this situation. So I think for the first few weeks, it was tough for everybody just because everything was in lockdown. We were seeing what was going to happen. And
Right.
little by little, I started getting more online traffic than I normally did. It was surprisingly weird. I was like, what's going on, you know?
Yeah.
But Mother's Day was coming up, and you know, that's a big celebration for everybody. Like we all celebrate our moms. So I started getting orders like, hey, can I have like a happy Mother's Day box for my mom or like some flowers. And it's been growing, thankfully. And then now we're back at the farmers market on Sunday, so that's been super helpful. We're going back to some of our old clients from back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm super thankful for like the support that I've been having since day one, and then the continued support of all these like new clients that are coming in. They've been referred by other people who I've worked with. So it's good to see that there's good word of mouth, good reference. And I think that's what's been helping me grow at this point.
Right. No, and that's so good because I feel like you were ready to take online orders. Whereas, if someone didn't have a website and they were just working off of one location, then maybe you would have not seen that growth, right? Especially with the
Mm-hmm.
pandemic, everyone's like, I want to be safe and I want to be away from people.
Exactly.
Because of social distancing, I think that everyone's trying to do the best they can. And if they could buy something from you online and know that they're still helping a small business, I mean, that's like a win-win situation.
Yeah, they have us doing a little happy dance behind our desk.
Well, when you started your business, is there anything you would want to have known beforehand? Like, is there something that you're like, God, I wish someone else would have taught me that? A struggle that you had to go through?
I think a lot of it has been learning as I go, because back then I didn't really know what I needed. I just said, oh, I
Hmm.
have this idea. I'm going to put it out there and see what happens. And thankfully now with social media like Instagram and Facebook, it's easy to just put a photo and be like, oh, hey, I got this idea. Like, what do you think? And you have your close group of friends, usually the first ones to respond, like, that's a good idea. Usually they hype you up, and you're like, okay,
Right.
let's go for it. Let's do it. I think more on like, and it's funny because I went to study business at Cal State LA. I graduated with my marketing degree, and now it was going back to the books and seeing, okay, what kind of audience am I trying to target, or who is my clientele?
Right.
What is like the price ranges I can work with? What is something reasonable, like especially for the community that I'm trying to give to? So I think it's more like
Hmm.
mentorship, and
Yeah.
thankfully I did have that type of mentorship, maybe not directly through business, but through the nonprofit world that I was working with. I had Eric from Las Fotos Project, David from the YMCA when he was there. So there's a lot
Mm-hmm.
of great people who had great mindsets, great ideas. So they were always pushing me to, just try it, do it. The resources are there. It's just really up to me to try it out.
Yeah, it really is. That's funny because I'm thinking right now, putting an idea out on Instagram or Facebook and then getting instant feedback, right, from
Mm-hmm.
a group of people who could potentially be your buyers is almost like you doing, what are those groups called? When they have
Focus groups.
focus groups. Yeah, but you're doing it in such an inexpensive way. It's free, right?
Mm-hmm.
Without really thinking about it, that's what you did, because that's what I hear from you. And that's amazing because, so many companies, especially the big corporations, will pay thousands of dollars for these organizations to come in and run these focus groups, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they want to put a product out there that's going to sell and not sit on those shelves, right? So yeah, the fact that you're using social media in that aspect is amazing, and it's something so new that like we couldn't have done this before, in the past. So the fact that you tapped into that's amazing because I feel like that's part of the reason of why I think you're really successful is that whenever there's a post, there's like buzz that's created around your product or about where you're gonna be at next.
Yeah, and even before Instagram, since my dad was already at farmers markets and events, it helped. Like I just brought in a product, put it out there. People usually react on the moment. You see what they like, what they don't like. And
Hmm.
it's that feedback that you need to think about, like, okay, what can I do to change it? How can I make it more appealing? Why did they not buy it? All these questions that you think about when people see a product that you thought was going to be like, a super great idea that's going to sell out quick. So yeah, being inexpensive, using what you got, the resources and the people around you before going and invest and, telling a company, hey, can you do the research for me when everything is in the palm of your hands, literally.
Yeah, on your phone. That's insane. And the more I think about that, the more I'm like, like we just need to be a little bit more creative and thinking outside the box. But now we have so many tools to do that almost instantly. you know?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. What about like a financial lesson? Is there a financial lesson you would want the audience to know or something to look out for? How have you, worked with your company's finance, you know?
Yeah, I think that's something that definitely need help in and always like learning, because you can only learn so much from Google and like looking at all these articles and ways to finance and all these like the QuickBook apps and all that. But if you don't really know how to use it or know how to plan, it makes it a little harder. And sometimes, I stress myself out when
Mm-hmm.
it comes to that. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna set aside what I'm gonna invest on like merchandise and product, and this is what I'm gonna
Right.
save, and like this is what I'm gonna keep for myself, like for my payment, you can say. But I think that's something that I'm still learning, how to pay myself, how to pay the business, how am I gonna save to eventually open up a location, a shop.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, and you know what's funny? So, you saying that just reminds me of so many business owners I've worked with in the past. Because again, I've been doing this for 10 years now, so I
Mm-hmm.
have worked with a lot of different entrepreneurs, not just Latinx. So I've seen that pattern not only in our community, but in all communities, right? So, and it's tough because like if you don't go to business school for accounting and finance, then you're learning other strategies. You're learning other theory, which is, leadership and how to build a company, how to market yourself, right? So there's
Mm-hmm. How to
things,
manage.
right, groups and like employees, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I truly, I learned the basics and the foundation in my business school, but I feel like it wasn't until I was in the accounting world, like 100% full throttle, that like every year I learned something else. Every job I went to, I learned something else. Every business owner I spoke to was like, "Why need help with this? Can you figure this out for me?" And I'm like, well, I'm not a bookkeeper. I'm just doing your taxes." So even knowing like the small details and the nuances between that, like, some bookkeepers, for example, will only do books because there's so much work to be done. And
Yeah.
then some tax preparers will only do tax preparation because it is a lot. It's so much work that has to be managed, so many items to have in compliance. But that's why I think I love my job, because I can guide all my clients and I can say like, hey, what are you doing? Like, this is due, this is what's next. And I love keeping them in compliance year after year.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've worked with so many people who have been not in compliance, and by the time they come to me or the firm I was working at, they would show up with late tax returns, penalties,
Mm.
that's accumulating. So they have to go in there and do cleanup. But
Yeah.
even though it is like very detailed work and it takes a lot of time, like I love getting to the stage where like, all right, you're back in good standing with state or the IRS,
Yeah, we're good to
So
go.
yeah, and I think so much of that you learn as you go. So definitely don't feel like you're alone in that story. There's so many entrepreneurs, have the idea of like I want to work for myself, which is amazing, right? To work for yourself, but with that comes a lot of responsibility,
Oh
lots of
yeah,
it.
yeah. You start,
Um,
have to look into the legalities, like permits and filing as a sole proprietor LLC, and what's the difference, the liabilities. So yeah, it's
mhm.
it's a lot of, I guess, more of the technical and legal work that sometimes we don't think about as small business owners. You're like, I'm trying out this idea. We'll see where it goes, and if it does grow, then okay, I'm gonna start looking into this legal situation.
Moving along to the next questions, which I think are going to be some of my favorite ones, because as I said, I am a plant daddy and I love plants. With the pandemic and all these new plants that you're seeing all over social media, what is your favorite plant, for example, that you love, absolutely love? What's your number one, if there is one?
I'm like, it's hard. I think I keep switching favorite plants like every other day. I'm like, I see one, I was like, oh, you're cute. Like, I want you to. I think right now my favorite one is the Swiss cheese plant, like
Oh yeah.
The Monstera family.
Hmm.
All those holes, I think, because they're different, unique, very tropical, beach vibes. That's why I love them.
Yes.
They're easygoing and
Uh-huh.
they're pretty luscious, you know.
Yeah.
So I think I'm like falling for them right now.
I have a little cutting that I got,
Hmm.
and the other day a leaf came out and I was like, oh, let me help the leaf unfurl, and I like did it too hard and I was like, never again. Because I ripped like the tip of it and I was like, who am I? Like, what kind of person would do this?
That's why they teach you patience, you know. It's like, wait, I'll do it at my own time, my own pace.
Yes, yes, you're so right. That's actually the actual lesson there. Because I was just like, but so I ripped a little tip and I'm like, Jesus, like it's so beautiful. I love that plant. But yeah, I'm hoping that one day it'll be super big and luscious. And I'll send you a picture for sure.
Yeah, no, it's funny because I have clients who send me progress photos of their plants that they've gotten from me.
Hmm.
Like, oh, this is when I first got it. This is like 6 months. This is a year later, or so it's good. It's good feedback, and they name their plants, so it's super cute. I love it.
Nice. Okay. So what about variegated plants? They're all the rage, obviously, and for the audience that's out there who doesn't know what a variegated plant is one that has more than one tone. It could have several tones of colors in the plants, but the most popular ones are like the green and white ones, right?
Hmm.
What how do you feel about them, and what's your take on like the new pricing of them?
I'm like, they are definitely, beautiful and I guess more like exotic plants at this moment because we rarely see them now. But the surge in price, I'm like, wow, that's insane.
Yes.
I think before we would see them more often, but we never really paid attention to them. So, what is it? Supply and demand. Right now they're on high demand and people really want them. So they'll pay anything for the most part sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think back then, since we didn't really notice them, we didn't really pay attention. We didn't care for it, But now that it's something that we see on Instagram all the time, we see people posting their variegated plants like with the white, with some pink. And it's like, oh, I want that too. Now that I'm a new plant mommy,
Mm-hmm.
new plant daddy, I need to have that to my collection as well. But
Yeah.
yeah, no, I think that's just wild. Like we do not need to pay so much for a variegated cutting.
Yes. I want to say, what's the most expensive cutting you've seen so far? Because I mean, I'll tell you what I've seen, but I want to know, you see more plants than I have. So,
Um,
what have you seen like one cutting go for?
I've seen mostly like Monstera cuttings online for bids, and they've gone up
Mhm.
to like $3,000 for
Jesus.
and I was like, wow, that is crazy. I'm like,
I
who's bidding
cannot
that high,
fathom. Yeah, I cannot fathom the idea of paying $3,000 for a cutting.
And imagine it's a
I,
cutting. Like you don't know if it's gonna survive the shipment, and then when you put it in water or in soil, whatever method you like using, it still has to go through that
mhm.
survival phase.
Yeah. Yeah. So I cut one of my mini monsteras, which I know I should not be calling it a mini monstera because that's not the proper name. But, I think I cut it in the summer and I've had it in water this whole time.
Hmm.
But it's now November, so a leaf just came out, and I'm like, this has been the hardest plant for me to propagate. And the whole point of me cutting that was like, I'm gonna give it to my friend, and now I'm like, geez, like it's taking me this long. I don't know if I want to give it to my friend. Maybe I should just buy her one, a bigger one.
You're like, I've been caring for this for so many months now. I think it's mine.
Yeah, you're right. It feels like a baby. I feel like, I switch out the water every week or every 2 weeks whenever if I forget, right?
Hmm.
But yeah, I see, okay, going back to the variegated plants, I was gonna tell you I've just seen cuttings for like $500 online.
Hmm.
And I'm like, that's insane. I would not pay $500 for a leaf because you don't know if it's going to survive or not, but they're all the rage now. But yeah, it's unfortunate that they've gone up so much in price lately.
Yeah, like the
Um,
variegated monsteras, like the pink princess, philodendron. I think those are like the top ones. Also, now the string of hearts and the string of turtles have become
mhm.
even more popular. So those are like the top ones, and if they're variegated, even better.
Yeah, that's insane. I've seen those. I've always seen those, and I've never really thought much of them until now. But I have little cuttings of those too, but those take kind of long to grow, so I can see
Hmm.
why those Because I feel like the Monstera grows pretty rapidly if you have it in a good place, but those take much longer, like just a little bit longer to grow, I guess.
Yeah.
Mhm.
No, I'm saying, like, even, I think because of the cutting, because you repot or transplant, they go through this like 2 to 3 month phase of kind of shock of readjustment to the temperature, to the location. So it definitely takes some time to grow.
Hmm. Oh, that's good you bring that up. So that way our listeners, if they are thinking about getting a plant, or getting more plants, they can, or cutting, they can, like, factor in, like, it's gonna take a while before the next leaf comes out, and it starts putting out even flowers. But okay, so I have a question for you because I just thought about this. What is a good plant for someone that's starting off and they will definitely tell you, I don't have a green thumb. What is one or two plants that you recommend are really good starter plants?
The top two that I recommend are the
Mm-hmm.
pothos or the snake plant.
Yes, those are two good ones.
I'm like, depending what kind of person they are, I'd ask them, like, are you something that you want something really low maintenance, or something where you're like, I can try to create a routine for it. Because a snake plant can be indoor, low light to medium light, even outdoors if you wanted to water every 2 to 3 weeks even, and they're hardy, they survive. If you want something like the pothos plant, that one just requires water every 7 to 10 days. Keep it indoors, and it's very, like, I think, how would you say, like a good plant to start with, and also because it's an air purifier, so good to have inside, and
Right.
it's luscious, like it'll grow rapidly. It's very giving. So I think you'll see and connect with it easier. But it all depends on the type of person that wants to start with a plant, how committed they are to having a new plant.
Okay, no, I think those are great. I mean, I think so many people are like, "Oh, that's beautiful." And here's the thing, every time I look at the sky and I look at the grass and the trees, like when I see the combination of blue and green, when I just see the color green, aside from it being my favorite color in the world, I think that there's something that shows you that there's more, that there's more out there, obviously, and it. To me, it brings me so much peace and calmness that I hope other people experience that too. But I think those are two great ones to start with, of course. Okay, I do have another question before we get to our last question. So, how can someone get a hold of you, or how can they reach you, and where can they see you selling your plants?
Okay, so you can find me on Instagram at the LA Garden, TheLaGarden. I say the LA Garden because sometimes people forget to add the. Or
Oh,
also
okay.
find me at the Farmers Market on Sunday from 9 to 3 p.m. on 5th and Broadway. And I'm there every Sunday, so I'm easy to find.
Yeah. Oh, so you're at the one in downtown LA, right?
In front of the last bookstore.
Oh, I love that store. It's so beautiful. All right, cool. So for my final question for today, what are some community takeaways that you would like to share with the community? Is there a book, a quote, or a podcast that you live by, or something you would just want to share with the community?
I think, at this point, this 2020, just explore anything and everything that's available to you and at reach. There's a lot of great podcasts. You're sharing small businesses. There's another friend of mine who has her Poderosa podcast, and she also highlight like women entrepreneurs in the community. So it's really cool. There's a lot of amazing Instagram accounts that share different businesses that are local to us. That way, these holidays, we can support the local businesses, especially with this pandemic. We've taken a huge hit because we are living off of our social media. If we have a website, our website, and our connections.
Right. So support small businesses for sure. Okay. No, I think those are great. Is there any one Instagram that you can think off top of your head that someone should be like, hey, go support them? They're another Latinx in the community.
Oh, we got a list of them here. I got the top ones. I think like from
Let's go for it.
From the group that I work with. Depending what you're looking for, if you're looking for cool apparel, I guess LatinX apparel is at Eladani Studio. She embroiders all her apparel pieces that she puts out. If you're looking
Mm-hmm.
into like skincare products, there's Skin to Soul. She hand makes all her soaps and different kind of skincare products that are good for you and natural. If you're looking for like teacher related school kind of creative documents for your students, my friend at the Pencil Box, she also creates cool things for teachers, teacher resources.
Okay.
I think those are the top three that I can think of at the moment. But yeah, I mean,
That's
you know, if you have questions or something that you're looking for, you're more than welcome to like reach out to me and tell me, hey, where can I find this or that, you know?
Yeah, and you know what? I will definitely put this information in the podcast note. So in the podcast world, the description of that episode, for some reason, it's called notes. So it's not called description, but that your information will be in there so the listeners can go look you up there as well. But I'll put these recommendations in there to the podcast, the Instagram account. And I agree with you, you know, since the pandemic started, I have spent my money with friends and family members who started their own business or they're selling comidas or lunches. I had a friend who started selling lunches every day because both her and her husband became unemployed. I have another friend who sells like baked goods and they're vegan. So Rosita E, you know? That's another one if you're looking for like vegan pies. And what's the other one? Oh, so yeah, my friend, he's just doing his own like pumpkin pies. So for Thanksgiving, I'm like, dude, like I will much rather pay you than send this money that, you know, we're all struggling to get a hold of at the moment to a big corporation because like my dollar's gonna help you out more, you know? And then the other things I've done is like for birthdays, like I bought a cake from this girl for my sister's birthday. She's out in the valley in the Coachella Valley because we celebrate it out there. But yeah, I definitely think that people, you know, if they can and they're willing to do so, go support these small businesses because, you know, it's about livelihood for me. You know, it's like, it's not just them that they're being able to support themselves, but maybe they're taking care of other people in their family as well, you know? And sometimes we don't know that story, but if I can do that and then have that impact, I actually wish you all the success and even more growth because I think you're doing such a good job. And I really did mean it when I told you that I feel like you put our neighborhood in high esteem. So yeah, just keep hustling and keep making that money and do good by our community.
Thank you. No, you know, and I just want to give back and continue being part of this community because it's given me so much growth and in space here. So I'm like so happy to be here.
So thank you so much. Thank you. I think all the information you provided is great. I think it's going to be amazing for listeners to listen to. And yeah, thanks again for coming on the show.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for having me and able to share a little.
Of course. Talk soon then.
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
Thank you so much for joining me on this episode. Please take a moment to subscribe, rate, and share this podcast with your network. Your support helps our LatinX business community grow stronger with every listen, and I truly invite you to connect with us. Send us your questions, your comments, or even your own business stories to randy@rgtaxes.com. I would love to hear from you. Until next time, keep learning, keep building your business, and keep growing your business mindset.